I told you things grow big here. Hello, huge movie fanatic Nate, stopping on by. Today I'm coming at you to review a movie from 1979, 40 years old this year. A movie by the name of Prophecy. And I think in the poster art and stuff like that, in the original VHS art, it's like underneath the prophecy it said like the monster movie. I incidentally I don't really like the title Prophecy. I feel like I don't know how it really plays into the movie or whatever, but I mean I'm not so sure the studio even liked the title so much because they felt like underneath. Well, I can show you this right here. They had to put the monster movie underneath it. This is the first DVD release of the film. Before I start the review of the film, I'm going to show you my, the copies of this that I have. I was trying to remember, I think I probably saw this for the very first time either in 2006 or 2007. I probably came across this DVD which came out, this is I think the second DVD release of it. This came out in 2006, I think I'm seeing on the back. I don't know why I would have actually got this. Maybe I have this memory that this might have been like on sale or clearance at Circuit City or something like that. And reading the back, the cover isn't anything that ever interested me, and it's a shame because this movie is right up my alley. But alas, I wouldn't see this movie until 2006 or 2007 when I would acquire this DVD, and this is after the people at Paramount Home Video started screwing up cover art. And I'll show you this. This is probably the second DVD of it, and this artwork is just not incredibly that great. I'm going to show you the original DVD of it. I mean, this is pretty much the poster and stuff. So after I got this, I came across this, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. The original DVD release of it from 2001, back when they were still, doing the more kind of old school, if you will, kind of artwork. And this is this DVD doesn't have the monster movie. It's got Terror is Born, which I think is something they just, made up for this release. This one, of course, has the monster movie thing, and it's the same basic, monster there from the poster. But I love the back of this so much more because it's just the classic imagery, from lobby cards and stuff like that. So it's the exact same disc. The artwork is the same. The only difference is, for this release, they just changed the cover. And what's really cool, and I just discovered another one. I thought I only had one of these. But I just discovered the second one just today before I started, before I got the review set up. I've got this, which I would imagine is the original VHS, and it's dated 1980, Paramount Pictures Corporation. The original VHS in Prophecy, and as you can see with the poster art in the first VHS release, it's just this weird kind of rainbow thing with the font there, Prophecy, the monster movie. Same artwork, as you can see. That artwork is pretty much carried through from the beginning on the posters and stuff like that, teaser poster and all that kind of stuff. But as you can see, the reason I like the first DVD release is because it uses, two of the images from the original VHS release on the back. The guy stabbing the monster, and then the woman with the Indian guy and that. So then this is the it's got those two images on the first DVD of it. Let's see what's on this one. I mean, yeah, it's got the guy stabbing the monster, but it's crazy because I knew I had this, and what's cool about this is just like some of those Friday the 13th VHSs I got. It's the very first release when it's got that, opening flap thingamabob, and the tape slips out that way. I've got Friday the 13th Part 1 and 2 VHSs like this I've showed you guys last year. But here's the bottom and the top. So this is a really cool Prophecy VHS like the original. And just today, moments ago, I was looking around for stuff and I came across this. I got two of them. So that's pretty cool. And actually, let me see. Oh my gosh, look at this. They're different. Can you see that? This is white, and this inside is blue. So how's about that? Two Prophecy VHSs. They're both dated 1980. But I've got two of these flap ones, and I just realized right now that one of them's white inside and one of them's blue. But I'm not exactly sure. I mean, I'm pretty sure the first time I saw this movie was this DVD. I guess I just, being a fan of these original VHSs, I came across them, I would imagine, for a decent price, and added those to the collection. So on to the review. Oh, before I start the review, I'll also mention that, in July or whatever, Scream Factory announced they're actually going to be putting on a Blu-ray of this particular title. And at the time I was like, oh, I'll get it, but then having watched the movie and the DVD looks pretty good. I mean, unless it's got some really slam-bang special features, I'm not exactly sure I'll be picking it up or not. It's not a movie I watch that often, and as I said, the DVD kind of looks fine. It depends on the pricing and the features and stuff included in the Blu-ray release, but a movie like this that takes place primarily out in the woods and stuff, as I've said in reviews past, for some of these kind of same genre movies, really demands to be seen in the highest quality possible for all your little woods details and all this, and we'll just see if I end up getting it or not. But as I said, I'm pretty sure I probably saw this for the first time '06 or '07, and I instantly loved it, being a fan of movies that take place in the woods and stuff. I'm not the biggest fan of like the monster in this movie or whatever, but I just love the fact that it takes place in the woods. And incidentally, it should be said, this movie's rated PG, and having just revisited it recently, it's like one of the most violent and kind of gory, not gory in a big way, but it's one of the most violent PG movies I can really remember seeing. I mean, obviously this is before PG-13, otherwise it definitely would have been PG-13, but straight off the bat, this is kind of a violent and, relatively gory in a small way movie for PG, and I can only imagine parents like at a video store and the kids like, this is the mommy, this, and it's in the horror section, but it's PG, okay. And then it's just like, rah! I mean, the monster like bites the guy's head off, and I mean, just just slaughtered family and slaughtered people and mangled faces, and it's just kind of nasty movie for PG, and especially these days when you think of PG, you think of relatively light. But back before PG-13, of course, you could get away with a lot more in PG and stuff. But the movie starts, I'm not going to do a beat by beat, I swear, but the movie does start with a really cool, just at night and just wind sounds, and this is what I mean. I just completely eat this kind of movie up, just taking place in the wilderness and the natural world and just outdoors and stuff. I love it, and it's really atmospheric opening at night where you just see these like lights going through the frame, and like you can hear like dogs, or you can hear like something breathing like and you just assume it's like dogs or whatever, but these these lights, pretty much just a black black frames with these lights going through. And at some point the dogs or the hounds or whatever go crazy, and they start off in this chase. And it should be said also that the music in this movie is pretty cool, done by that one dude, Leonard Rosenman. And I think the first movie I can remember hearing his music from is Star Trek IV. I saw that in the theater back in the day when it came out. And he's got definitely a sound that's definitely you can tell it's him. And when I first saw Avalanche for the first time earlier this year, I was like, that sounds like Leonard Rosenman. Alas, that wasn't. But I think he also did the music for that Fantastic Voyage and of course RoboCop 2 and stuff. And I will say, although for this particular movie, I mean, he's got this, Leonard Rosenman has this huge, big kind of epic sound. But I will say for this movie, I mean the movie, I guess the music works for the movie, but it's kind of like a situation where you're like, it's probably, the score is completely, I don't think there's like really any themes in the score, like any kind of discernible theme. It's just kind of like, which is, I guess it's fine, it's kind of different. It's just like, just just I don't know. It's almost like he wrote the score when he was drunk, because I don't know, some of the I don't know. It's just almost like a score written by someone who has no idea what music. It's just a weird score, but I mean it's like I like it and don't like it at the same time. If you've seen the movie or heard the score, you know what I'm talking about. Like it's got this really great epic, competence to it, like Leonard Rosenman usually has, but at the same time, there's like no discernible theme, and it's just like, but I guess it suits the movie for what it needs to be. But anyway, this chase at the beginning of the movie goes on for a while, and the music, and I can hear the music right now thinking of the scene, and it's really kind of cool. It's like it's just interesting how, and it is kind of an interesting exercise in making a movie score without really having any kind of, at least that I could tell, discernible themes pop up really at any point in the movie. It's just like, whatever I feel like putting on the paper notes or whatever. But again, the music does have a cool epicness and a bigness to it, and these guys end up, along with their hounds, or well, all but one of them, I guess, all end up dying. One of the hounds are just, the chase is on so hardcore that one of the dogs just jumps over this cliff, and of course they're on leashes, so the guy tries to pull the dog up, and the dog gets something's pulling on the leash and it breaks, and guys go down there trying to get the dog, and then they can just hear like kind of just screaming over the ledge, and then this last guy goes down, and he ends up falling and seeing gory bodies, and then being attacked by a monster. And at the very beginning of the movie, you don't see the monster. You just see the guy's reaction or whatever, and then it cuts to, I'm gonna not do a beat by beat, I swear, but then it just cuts, the next thing it cuts to kind of dusk or morning, morning rather, and this cool, classical, classical piece of music theme comes up, and it's always funny when you have beautiful classical music and this gory scene. In the morning, we can see, the mayhem of all these guys at the bottom of the cliff, just sprawled out, massacred. One guy's hanging from looks really uncomfortable hanging from the rope, and he's all just sprawled out on the, it looks so uncomfortable. But then it kind of pans out to the trees, and we dissolve to the character. The lead star of this movie is this, I don't know how to pronounce her name, but Adrian from Rocky. It's Talia Shire, I'll just say that, is the main billing, and then her husband in the movie, Robert Foxworth. And this movie also features, I don't know how to pronounce his name, Armand Assante or whatever. The guy, the first time I'd seen him was in Judge Dredd. He played Stallone's brother in that movie. And she's this really kind of cool scene of her she's like a celloist or something, and then playing this classical piece or whatever, and then afterwards she informs, God, I said I'm not gonna do a beat by beat anymore after this, informs her her celloist woman next to her that she's pregnant, and that her husband is so against bringing a child into the world. And incidentally, I share the exact same viewpoint as her husband in this movie. I'm exactly in the exact same position with him, and we'll just simply say that husband, I don't know exactly what the hell job husband does. He's a gas leak and rat bite man. We'll just say that. He ends up getting a job where there's this dispute between this lumber company and this tribe of Indians, of course, dispute about this particular part of land where I guess the lumber company wants to, go and start cutting down trees there, and the Indians claim it's their land and stuff. So this guy, the husband of the main star chick, whatever the hell her name, what the hell's her name? Talia Shire, the Robert Foxworth character, is sent, him and his wife are sent to this really, really beautiful place it's said, I don't know if it's shot in Maine, but it's said to take place in Maine, this location, where the lumber company has this beef with the, Indian tribe or whatever, to go try to, I don't know exactly, I guess he's going to go and check out the plant, the paper mill plant in the area, to try to make a decision, and about what he thinks should be done. Like, should they let the Indians have the place, or is what the lumber company, the sawmill, is it okay for the environment, is it not, or whatever. I guess that's what he's going there to make a determination on, and then whatever, of course, this stuff, so that's what he's going there for. And I will say that early on in the movie, there's this great, when we're introduced to the character of, I think it's John Hawke, John Hawkes or something like that. The the Asante, the Almond. I wish people had names I could pronounce. This guy from Judge Dredd, this Armand Asante character, I think is this Indian guy, this John Hawke or whatever, John Hawkes or whatever the hell his name is. And this scene where they're flown in by a little plane and they're driven in. They're going to be driven to like the spot where they're going to stay. They've set them up in this really swanky, nice cabin and stuff on the lake. And on their way to their location, they're being driven there. The main stars, Adrian and her husband, are being driven to this spot, and there's this confrontation where the Indians have chained, put a chain across the road and standing there, and they don't want people in there. They call, they say the land is theirs, and pretty much rightfully so or whatever, in my opinion. And there's this scene is just so wonderfully done and conceived and executed, where this confrontation between this guy, this lumber mill guy who's driving them up there, and the guys, the heavies or whatever that are with him, and the people, the John Hawke character and stuff, and it's just really, 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 really done well. Where he's just, I mean, this is as raw as whatever you want to call it can get, where someone is just standing up for what they believe in, and it's just no one from the lumber company is going to pass through here, and and it's just this really, probably this might be the best scene in the movie. The more I think about it, just this confrontation scene where these Indians don't want these lumber mill people in there, and it's just like, oh my gosh. And every time you watch it, especially the first time, but every time you watch it, I kind of have the same feeling. And even though you know what's going to happen, it's just like, oh my gosh, where the lumber mill guy is like, tells this other guy, cut down those trees, please, like the trees that the chain's attached to, and it's just like, oh my God, the ante's up or whatever, it's getting real. And it's just like, oh, someone hands John, Hawke an axe, and it's just like, it's really, really tense. And the guy goes to just start the chainsaw, and he starts cutting on the tree, and the Indian, John is like, pushes him away, and then it's this like battle, this standoff kind of thing between this guy with the chainsaw and John with an axe, and it's just like, oh my God. Meanwhile, like, the main stars, the guy and his wife are like, don't let this happen, or stop this, and I kind of agree with them. It's just like, oh my God. And if I was there, oh my God, even as a viewer of this fake movie scene, it's just like, oh wow. This is, like I say, it's probably the best scene in the movie, or definitely one of them, where it's just like, oh my gosh. And of course he ends up losing. He kind of falls over the chain, lands on his back, and the guy's got in a shot that just cries out to be 3D. He's like pointing the chainsaw blade right at the guy's throat, and it's just like, oh my God. And even at that scene, the guy's like, John's like, no, don't open it. And he's like, open it, let him through. And he's like, no. And I mean, this guy's ready to die to protect what he thinks is his. And it's just such a great scene, and it's so heartbreaking. Of course, his wife, or the woman, or that Indian woman, or I don't know who this woman is to him or whatever, but this Indian woman will open the chain, let him through, and the expression on this guy's face when they drive past, of just being completely and utterly just he's just like squashed, what his intent of not letting these people pass. He's just defeated, and completely and utterly defeated. You just feel, as a viewer, if you've got any kind of compassion, you feel so bad for the character when they drive past them, and just, oh my God, that's just such a great scene. And as I said, these two characters, the man and wife, are put up in the swanky cabin, and this guy does some fishing, and he sees this huge massive fish go splashing out of the water, and it's like, holy crap. And then later that night, as this guy's wife is trying to hint around to him, trying to find the perfect moment to reveal what's sure to be, tragic, shocking, horrifying news to this guy that she's pregnant. She's trying to slowly figure that out and try to hint, women, you gotta do this hinting, and then if you don't get it, then you're the bad one or whatever. I love that bullshit. But she's hinting around, like, trying to, lead up to telling him she's pregnant, and then this racket's at the door, and he opens the door to this, convulsing raccoon on the ground, and it runs in, and there's this, like, raccoon attack. and he ends up like putting it, with an oar. He smashes it and like puts it in the fireplace, and it's just like, oh man. So I think that's along with seeing like the whatchamacallit, the big huge fish, and then this crazy ravenous acting raccoon. He's getting hints and stuff of like what the hell is going on here, and then so much for no, not doing a beat by beat. Then later on, him and his wife are taken, met by that John Indian guy and the woman that's with them and stuff, to go show them, he wants to show them, and rightfully so, their encampment or whatever like that, and they go to see, the beautiful kind of tent set up camp area, Indian area they've got set up, and then they go show them introduce them to Grandpa or whatever, and then they'll go show them the kind of horrible, deplorable living conditions they're in now and stuff, to show them, their side of the story and stuff, and it's just, to be honest, although like what you'd call the action or the monster stuff, although it takes place in the last, half of the movie, to be honest, I find the first half of the movie to be most interesting, because I think that the plights of the Indian tribe and stuff and all that kind of stuff was just written and executed so well that, it doesn't even have to be a monster movie. Like, it'd be a good movie if it was just about the plight of the Indian stuff going on and all that, but it does end up, of course, being a monster movie, so that's fine too. So while the guy and his wife are being shown this stuff, they end up coming across a tadpole that's like just freaking the size of I don't know what, it's like a foot long, this huge freakish tadpole. And at that point, I don't know if he's gone to no, he hasn't gone to the plant yet. So after that, he goes, and he and his wife go to the plant and get this kind of tour by this, whatever, this guy, incidentally, who gives the, is like a spokesman for the lumber company or whatever. It would go on to be like the doc or something like that, or some guy in the John Carpenter movie The Thing. I don't know. He's not because I think Wilford Brimley or whatever is the doc. I don't know what the hell he is. Anyway, he's in John Carpenter movie The Thing, but this guy is the spokesperson for the lumber company. He gives them this whatever tour of this and that, and evades some of this guy's questions and stuff like that. And when they're leaving, they boated there in this little outboard boat, and when they're leaving, the Adrian from Rocky, accidentally steps in the mud, and on the boat ride back, he's like, "What's that stuff on your boot?" And it's like that silver stuff, and it's like, "Is it wet?" And she's like, "No," and it's like, "They gave us a trick question in medical school. What's the only liquid that isn't wet?" "Mercury." And it's like, dun dun dun. So basically this guy deduces that, mercury or whatever is like squeezed out of, I don't know exactly what, where it comes from or whatever, if it's something to do with the chemicals that they use to, make this paper, the wood into paper or whatever, but mercury is involved somehow because of the lumber company and stuff, and mercury is just being squeezed out onto the river and onto just the land and all this and that around this area and stuff, and has been completely and totally poisoning the wildlife, and even the Indians, like, they eat the fish that's, the mercury in the fish, and they get all kind of like woozy, and they act like they're drunk when they haven't had a drop, and, so slowly, and this is, so many times is the case, they put, truth in movies, and there's a lot of truth in this, and, and just the way that, the mankind is just being slowly obliterated by chemicals and all this kind of stuff, and even more and more chemicals, over the course of the years being introduced into not only chemicals now, but now, radio transmission, all this RF signals and stuff, and everyone's, computers and cell phones and, tablets and all this RF exposure. I mean, it's just like we're just being bombarded by ever more chemicals and RF exposure and all this and that. And of course, this movie being 40 years old doesn't even delve into, this was the good old days when people didn't have cell phones and shit. But I'm just saying that, oftentimes is the case, they put truth in movies, and this is just, this movie is basically true. It's not some kind of fantasy or, sci-fi, just made up plot line. It's the truth being woven into the movie. So that's the basic premise of this movie. And the fact that this mercury gets into the water, and then the fish, gets into the fish, and whatever animals or people eat the fish, they it affects their offspring, and they get deformed offspring, and that's what this movie's about. One can only assume that like the monster in this movie is like this big, huge, deformed, just giant frickin', I don't know how tall they say this thing is in the movie, but just like 20 foot, 15 foot tall mutant bear is kind of the monster in this movie. And then earlier on, the characters will oh, that's another thing that I wanted to mention, is that there's this family, this dad and daughter and son campers that go out, and we see them arrive, and then we see them kind of hiking. And then what's so funny is when we see introduced to them, the kids are like, oh boy, it'll take 3 days to hike down there, that sounds hard. Yeah, but that's the fun. And then the next scene we see them, they're like, they're walking, and they've just been walking forever, and they're just, everyone's had it or whatever. And then the third scene with them, they're sleeping or whatever, and it's kind of, we don't see the massacring of the dad and the daughter, but we kind of see the monster, like this kid in the sleeping bag gets up and tries to hop away, and the monster's like, push, just kind of bats him against the rock, and he goes flying against the rock, and it just explodes into like feathers, the sleeping bag. Just kind of, so the family ends up being killed, and then of course the lumber company guy brings the authorities down. They're convinced that the disappearing campers and hikers and stuff are because of these crazy drunk Indians, when in fact it's the monster that this deformed mutant monster bear that's doing it. But when they get whiff of these campers having been killed, they come to arrest the John Hawke character, and he ends up escaping and getting set on the loose, or running for his life, or whatever the hell you want to say. And what's really funny about this is at this point then the main stars, the guy and his wife, end up hearing about the location this happened. Of course they want to go check it out, and what's so weird about this movie is they get helicoptered to that spot where the family got killed by the mutant bear, and then at the same time they arrive, the John Hawke character, who's on foot, is also there to check it out to see what happened. And it's like, okay, how did they get there at the same time? I don't think we're supposed to, pay attention to that or realize that happened. But they check out the crime scene, or the murder scene, if you will, and see all this kind of, these huge, deep claw marks in this tree, and this kind of skin slop stuff in the claw marks, and they're just like, oh my God, what is this? At this same point in time, Adrian from Rocky discovers this, two of these mutant bear babies, what we can only assume are mutant bear babies, in this river thing where these poachers put this net across this waterway, and it's just like one of them is dead and one of them's alive. It's like, and I will say the sound effect of this crying mutant baby, monster bear is really kind of an unsettling sound. It's it's just like, and they grab the corpse and the live one. They're like, this is proof. We got to show this to the authorities, and the newspapers will make them believe, or whatever. And they get that, and they take the thing, and it's like, where can we? It's all rainy and cold. Where can we go to someplace warm? And the guy, the helicopter pilot's like, the winds come up too much. I'm not gonna fly you out of here now while it's this windy. And they go to the the Indian kind of teepee campsite, and keep the mutant baby bear, try to keep him warm, and put a IV drip in him, and just like, oh my gosh. And what ends up happening is, I think we can only assume it's like Mama Bear is kind of the antagonist monster of this movie. I don't know if the crying of this thing, the TP area, the Indian camp, I don't know if it's the crying out of this monster mutant baby bear that brings Mama, but Mama big mutant monster bear comes destroys the Indian TP camp, and luckily they've got these underground tunnels where they can go into, and it kind of makes you wonder if the guys who wrote the stupid remake of Friday the 13th saw this movie. It's just like, oh man, it's a little more believable in this movie. I don't think they can necessarily get all around underground. It's more like just to store perishables and stuff underground or whatever. But yeah, so that's I think the first time we really kind of see the mutant monster mama, if you will, bear and attack these people and stuff, and it's just like, oh man. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that you know, of course, I think, you know, once, you know, Mr. Doctor Guy or whoever's married to this, you know, Adrian from Rocky or whatever, once she gets a whiff of or hears that he figured out that it's mercury that's poisoning the, you know, the wildlife and stuff, and that it, you know, if any pregnant animal eats the fish, that they could have a mutant baby or whatever. Well, you know, they had fish just the night before, and, you know, of course, when, you know, whatever, Adrian hears, I don't know what her character name is in the movie. Well, of course, when Adrian hears that, you know, these fish in this area are mercury, you know, poisoned with mercury, and if you eat one when you're pregnant, you know, your offspring can be a mutant baby or whatever. Of course, she hears that, and she's just like, you know, oh my God, just kind of, we just see her be all worried about this. And I think somewhere, I don't know, maybe the end, maybe the beginning of the last third of the movie or halfway through the movie, it's, you know, she reveals to the husband that she's pregnant. You know, and it's not gonna, just because the husband's like, this will be all over soon, it'll be behind us, and she's like, no, it's just starting. I'm pregnant. What if I have a mutant baby now? And so this is kind of like, you know, just problems on top of problems in this movie. It's like, oh my gosh, it's not only like a horror thriller monster movie, but it's kind of psychological, like, oh my God, you know, what's gonna be the outcome with her baby? So after that, you know, being attacked by the, you know, monster mutant bear, mama bear or whatever, you know, the rest of the movie is kind of just survival. I'd say it's just like, I don't know, the last 30 minutes or so of the movie, 30, 40 minutes, is just them trying to get the hell out of the woods, you know, alive, basically. I mean, you can kind of identify with that sentiment. So as I said, I mean, upon revisiting it, I mean, it's just like I was really digging the first half, and not to say that I don't like the second half, but the first half is just so great, setting everything up and the plight of the Indians and stuff. I gotta say that usually, you know, the last half of movies or event movies and stuff are the fun parts. Well, I'm not to say that, you know, the horrific monster stuff isn't fun, but I mean, for me, the second half kind of, it doesn't really live up to the greatness of the first half. If you're more of an ADHD kind of a person, you know, maybe you'll just like I mean, the last half is basically nothing but monster mayhem and them just trying to, as I said, get out of the woods and stuff like that. So there is this kind of cool scene where they end up coming across this, you know, this 4x4 kind of heavy off-road kind of, you know, transport vehicle or whatever, and takes place at night, and this scene's really kind of, I mean, nothing really, I mean, it's really not anything really happens that's great. It's just kind of like the music and the atmosphere and the mood of them driving through the dark, trying to, you know, and of course they end up getting attacked by Mama Bear and mutant Mama Bear, and just tips it over instantly. I mean, one thing I will say for being 40 years old, I mean, even still now, you know, with no CG and stuff like that, not that CG is a good thing, they really, even 40 years later, this mutant monster Mama Bear is really kind of, when you watch the movie, really kind of intimidating and scary, and just like, oh my God, you know, you can just imagine being there, and you can't really even outrun this thing, and it's just like, oh my God. So I will say that, you know, even 40 years later, the mutant monster Mama Bear is really kind of scary, and just like, oh my gosh, there's nothing that can really, I mean, if she can just tip over this freaking huge 4x4 transport vehicle just made out of steel, I mean, nothing's gonna stop her, you know. And I will say, in this scene, several times they do this kind of thing, and when they were attacked at the Indian camp, they did the same thing, where it's just like, just silence and kind of, you know, lulling the audience in a false sense of like, just everything's okay, and then the guy sticks his head out and he's like, ah, just attacked, which is really fun. But they do the same kind of thing in the transport scene where, and the music does this really funny thing where they're just driving in the dark, and the music's just like and like nothing's happening, but the music gets all exciteful, and then it kind of just fades away, and it's like, oh, lulls you into, and then the monster appears. So I mean, you know, there are some kind of, you know, fun things or whatever, but, you know, let's face it, the last half of the movie or last third of the movie is just kind of them just trying to survive the mutant monster Mama Bear thing. So, you know, obviously the man and wife end up, you know, getting away. I think Gosh, I think everyone else. No, I don't. No, I think the Indian woman lives, but John Hawke ends up dying, and everyone else dies. I think that I think I don't remember. The end is just so kind of blurry. But I think the Indian woman lives, or maybe she doesn't. I don't remember. But it doesn't really it doesn't really matter. The Adrian and her husband get away and are flown out of there safely or whatever. And what's funny is it's kind of like, oh man, we never know. They make such a big deal about her being pregnant and having eaten the fish. It's kind of like we never know if if her baby ends up being fine or not. And they could have done something funny at the in the end credits, or like at the end of the end credits, where they just they maybe did wah wah wah, just like a baby sound that sounds normal at first, and then it goes or something like that. But it should be said that in a pure goofy, just I don't know, sequel setup fashion, there's this shot of them flying away, husband and wife, everything's fine, flying away back to wherever the hell they live, and the camera pans with the plane, and then when the plane goes away, this other mutant monster head comes into the shot, and it's so freaking just hilariously, this movie was probably a big budget movie because it's came out in 1979 and it was in stereo. I mean, it was, a movie's a more of a bigger budget movie if in 79 it came out and it's in stereo. I'm pretty sure that this movie, was recorded and, and released in stereo in 79, and I think it was a relatively, kind of big budget movie, and it was just kind of funny to see such a kind of a B-movie ending where it's just like, it'll just pop up this blatant, just obvious puppet head into the frame, and it's just, so the last shot, the last moment of this movie was just delightful, just as a horror movie and a, exploitation movie fan. It's just like, this is a really weird movie, and I didn't even mention, because I don't know, I'm not familiar with any of his work, but the guy who directed this is John Frankenheimer, and that's a name that is familiar, but I don't know if I've ever seen any other movies of his besides this one. But as I said, I think this was a relatively big budget movie for the time, and you can tell by it being presumably recorded and finished and released in stereo 40 years ago. But yeah, so there's that about it. As I said, it's kind of a bummer. We never get to find out whether or not, Adrian's baby is okay, but whatever. It's all fiction BS anyway. So at the end of the day, I'm going to be able to go 3 stars out of 4 stars for Prophecy. As I said, in my opinion, the first half is the strongest half. Strangely enough, when all the monster stuff starts happening, that's, more or less when it becomes less interesting for me, just because it's, I don't know. I guess they set everything up, and then they can just let the hell unfold at that point or whatever. But definitely a movie that if you like outdoors movies, it's just so beautiful, because the majority of the movie just takes place out in the, like I say, I don't know if it was shot in Maine, the forests of Maine probably, I don't know. It's just an absolutely beautiful movie, and as I said, it probably should be, a fan of this movie like myself probably should buy the Blu-ray. Time will tell whether I end up getting it or not, but it's a movie that I would recommend if you guys have been watching me for a while and generally have the same kind of, whatever as I do, same kind of, same kind of tastes or whatever. I would recommend it. Incidentally, it is on Prime for streaming for free if you're a member of Prime or whatever, and it is like an HD version. So of course that could change throughout the the course of days, weeks, and months or whatever. But at the time of me filming and uploading this review, it is free to watch on Prime Video and Amazon Prime or whatever. So this review probably went on way too long. You can tell when I'm going to do a beat by beat if I keep saying I'm not going to do it. That way I'm going to do it. So I should just stop saying I'm not going to do a beat by beat, then maybe I won't. But, as often is the case, if a movie, if I like a movie, if it's a 3-star or more movie for me, it generally excites me, and not in that way, but, interests me, and it's hard not to keep going on and on and on about a movie. So I think we'll end this review. So thank you very much for watching. As always, we'll see you next time.